Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Global Communication 2. This is the makeup lecture for Chuseok 2025. I hope everybody is having a great holiday. Uh, the weather is not very good outside right now as I record this video, but I hope everybody has found something good to do for the holidays. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about personal narrative. In our last class, I talked about writing narrative essays, which is when you take um, an experience in your life and you condense it into a short, usually 5 paragraph style essay. And then you tell us something that was important in your life. Perhaps it was a milestone, perhaps it was a turning point of some kind, or just a really memorable experience that you want to write about. Well, I would like to continue that vein of discussion today, but I want to make it even shorter than a regular 5 paragraph essay. I want to talk about anecdotes, which is one of the most common forms of personal narrative, and you can encounter this in many different presentations and speeches. So I hope you'll find what I'm about to talk about useful. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about a particular anecdote that you'll be watching. If you want to understand anecdotes, here's the important thing to remember. An anecdote has got to be short. If you're going to tell me something about your life and there's a point to it, then it's got to be brief. Usually, anecdotes relate some kind of life lesson. Maybe you've had some kind of experience in your life and you think there's a general truth or a fact of life that the experience demonstrates. These are often great, yeah, as I mentioned, for speeches and presentations. You'll often have speeches or presentations beginning with an anecdote. Maybe the person wants to talk about something, maybe an experience that they've had, and that experience contains an important point that demonstrates the main idea of that person's presentation or speech. And presentations are great for anecdotes because an anecdote is personal. And so it makes the topic very relatable. A good anecdote, as I've already mentioned, has to be brief. If you start going on too long, the audience will get bored. So an anecdote has to be very short and very tightly written, very well prepared. Each part of an anecdote has to have just enough information so that the audience understands what's going on. If you put in too many details, then you'll find the audience starts to get a little bit bored and they wander off. A good anecdote should be short and very concise and have a clear life lesson. So in the first part of the paragraph, you tell me information that will set up the rest of the story. And then in the second part, the second paragraph, then you tell me the climax and what you learned from that. So it should be a short, interesting life event based on something that happened in your own life. It should tell us some important truth or general life lesson. And it's told chronologically. So you start at the beginning, you go to the end. You don't do any jumping back and forth between the past and the present. Now, for one of the participation points I want you to for one of the participation aspects of today's lecture, what I want you to do is to watch the first few minutes of this video here. I've got the link in the PPT, and hopefully I'll remember to put the link in the post on Cyber Campus as well. It's called How to Talk Like a Native Speaker, and it's a presentation by a man called Mark Green, who claims to speak, I think, 5 or 6 languages as well as a native speaker. And he begins his presentation with a short anecdote from his own life. And there is a point that he wishes to demonstrate from this anecdote. So you'll see, I think, very clearly how his anecdote is related to the main point of his speech. And if you watch a lot of TED Talks or any kind of speech or presentation, you'll often find that they do begin with this sort of anecdote, a short story from the person's life experience that demonstrates a kind of truth or a life lesson that other people can benefit from. But like I said, it shouldn't be too long, because if you make the story too long and you go into too much detail, it starts to sound like a memoir or the person's autobiography, and people can get a little bit bored. You've got to keep it quite short and really, really concise. So I want you to watch the first few minutes of the video where you can see him give his anecdote. And at the beginning of our next class, I will be asking students whether they thought the speaker made the point that he wanted. I'd like to know if you found his anecdote interesting, and also what you thought of it. I mean, did you think it was too long? Did you think it was too short? Was it just right? How about the way he presented it? Was it clearly related to the point of his speech? Could you see a clear connection between what he wanted to talk about and then what he started talking about for the rest of the speech? Because remember, he is talking about the importance of, learning a language to the point that you're like a native speaker. So yeah, what experience does he describe? How does it relate to the topic? What's your opinion on the anecdote itself? And a couple of other questions. I will ask everybody about this at the beginning of our class next Tuesday. So don't forget about that. All right. So 2-paragraph structure. This is the whole point that I want to get across today. Anecdotes should be short. There's not a lot of room for detail. You don't have a beginning, middle, and end. Instead, you just have a simple 2-paragraph structure. And these 2 paragraphs should tell us when and where the event took place, who was involved, what happened and why, what was the result, and what lesson was learned. You've got those 5 points. We've got to put them very clearly in 2 paragraphs. Okay, so let's take a look for a second here at the first paragraph of a model anecdote, okay? And then I'll go through and show you what each sentence does. So, one summer weekend, some friends and I decided to walk to a waterfall that we had heard about. Since it was too far to walk along the road, we followed a railroad line. We had walked 5 or 6 miles when we came to a high rock wall where the tracks entered a tunnel. This tunnel did not look very long, but it was very narrow, and we knew that it would be dangerous if a train came, because there would be no safe place for us to go. However, we could not climb the rocks or walk around them, and no one wanted to go back. Finally, we decided to go through the tunnel. I knew it was foolish, but I went because the others did. This sounds a little bit like the video clip that we had in our last class where the 4 boys were walking along the railroad trestle over the water. Remember, they had to run when the train came? All right, so what have we got here? I've color-coded a couple of the sentences just to give you an idea of what we have. One summer weekend, some friends and I decided to walk to a waterfall we had heard about. Since it was too far to walk along the road, we followed a railroad line. These 2 sentences actually give us a lot of information. They tell us when it happened, one summer weekend. It tells us who was involved, some friends and I. It tells us what they decided to do. They decided to walk. Where did they decide to walk? To a waterfall that they had heard about. Past perfect tense. You might remember the grammar point from our last class. Had plus the PP, the past participle verb, the past tense. Go check the PPT from the last class if you can't remember that. We decided, okay, so that's past tense, to walk to a waterfall that we had heard about. So first they heard about it, and then they decided to walk there. Why? Since it was too far to walk along the road, we followed a railroad line. So just in those first two sentences, we get an awful lot of context. We get the when, the who, the what, the where, and also the why. Not a single word is wasted. After two sentences, we are already halfway, almost halfway through the story. We've got all the background that we need. We know when it happened, who was involved, what the person decided to do, where they decided to go, and the reason for it. We've got the complete setup. Oh, hold on, let me just go back here. And then we get a little obstacle. So they walk 5 or 6 miles, and then there's a high rock wall. And this rock wall, can't really go around it. And the railroad tracks go through this wall. And don't know how long it is. So they know that if they start walking through it, it's going to get them to the other end of the tunnel. But if a train comes, there won't be anywhere for them to go. Now take a look here at the last sentence that I highlighted in red. I knew it was foolish, but I went because the others did. Remember, a good anecdote has a life lesson. And this sentence here is kind of a hint that there is going to be a life lesson. I knew it was foolish. I did something stupid. But why did I do something stupid? I went because the others did. And this is going to come back later. It's going to dovetail with the second paragraph at the end. Okay, let's take a look at the second paragraph now. So as soon as we entered the tunnel, we saw that it was longer and darker than we had thought. Suddenly, everyone was frightened. We all began to run. This is crazy, I thought. As we ran faster, it got lighter in the tunnel. Once we were outside, we fell on the ground, gasping. About a minute later, a train came through. And that was when I finally realized the importance of thinking for myself. So we've got a life lesson here. It's very important to think for yourself and not do what other people do, just as a matter of following the crowd. This is one of the more common life lessons. You've probably heard this from your mother and father, like, oh, mom, dad, I want to do something. And then your parents say, no, you can't do it. Oh, but everybody else is doing it. And then they say, well, if your friends started jumping off a bridge, would you do that too? Just because your friends do it doesn't mean that you should do it. It's important to think for yourself. Well, this anecdote would work very well in any presentation where the person wants to talk about the importance of thinking for themselves, not just following the crowd. In this case, the person could have gotten into a very serious accident if a train had come because they didn't think for themselves. Sometimes we put ourselves in danger because a group of people decide to do something. And by making that choice, by abdicating our independence and just following the crowd, we can actually put ourselves in a lot of danger. And that's why we have to keep in mind the importance of independent thinking, thinking for ourselves and deciding on our own best interest. Okay, so as I mentioned before, this anecdote does use a little bit of the past perfect. This is when you describe something that happened before something else. So we had walked for 5 or 6 miles when we came to a high rock wall. The walking, that happened first. So we put that in the past perfect tense. We had walked. And then after walking, we get the more recent event, which is we came to a high rock wall. By the way, you could also change the order for the sentence and say, we came to a high rock wall after we had walked 5 or 6 miles. The point is, you've got two things that happened, and to clarify which one happened first, you can put the earlier action into the past perfect tense. Okay. There are a couple of other examples here. Yeah, some friends and I decided to walk to a waterfall we had heard about. So we heard about it and then later decided to walk. We saw it was longer and darker than we had thought. Yeah, they go into the tunnel, and their original idea of how long and dark it was, turns out it was longer and darker than that. So we realized that's the more recent event, then it was longer and darker than we had thought. The original idea was wrong. Now they have a clearer picture of how dark and long the tunnel actually is. All of these examples show how you can use the past perfect tense. Okay, now inserting the life lesson. Remember, people don't tell an anecdote for no reason. An anecdote is a short story based off of a personal life experience that includes some kind of general truth or life lesson that people can learn from. Here's an experience that I had where I learned an important lesson, and I want you to learn from it too. In this case, it's a very classic tale of someone doing the opposite of what they know they should do. They make a very stupid move, or they make a very poorly thought out decision. Now, sometimes when people do the opposite of what they should do, they do it knowingly. And that's what happens in this case. The person clearly knows that they're making a mistake, but they do it anyways. They're doing something dangerous, but they just want to follow their friends. However, there are other cases where a person will make a mistake, and it will be because they just don't know any better. So at the end of the first paragraph, the writer sets up or hints at the life lesson. I knew it was foolish, but I went because the others did. And then at the end of the second paragraph, then we get the life lesson. That's when I realized the importance of thinking for myself. And that's all you really need to know for an anecdote. 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph should, let me just check the next slide here. I'll just go to the next slide here. The first paragraph should set up the story. It should give us any context that we need. It should tell us who you are, who else is involved, what's happening and why. And then we go to the second paragraph, and there's usually a change. A decision is made at the end of the first paragraph, and then you get the action and its results in the second paragraph. So there's usually some kind of shift in the second paragraph. In this case, the person is outside the train, outside the tunnel, and then they decide to go inside. They know that it's bad, but they go, or they know that it's dangerous, but they go because their friends go. And then we change to the second paragraph. And in the second paragraph, the person is in the tunnel, and it's darker and longer than they thought. And they start to get scared, and then they start running. And it's a good thing they start running, because they run all the way to the end of the tunnel, and then they get outside, and then like a minute later, while they're gasping on the ground, trying to get their breath, trying to catch their breath, suddenly a train comes through. So if they hadn't run, they might have been hit by a train. This is important because it shows a definite change from the first paragraph. The first paragraph sets up the story. It gives us all the context, all the background information, and it includes the first part of the action. In this case, the people walking up to the big rock wall with the tunnel. Second paragraph, you can see that there's sort of a change of location now that they are in there. There's also a change of tone. It gets a lot more ominous, right? The people are inside the tunnel, and they get scared and start running. So there's a definite shift between the first paragraph and the second paragraph. If you have just a very short time to tell a life lesson, or to tell an experience that has a very important life lesson, then you've got to keep all of the information relevant. Don't go off on a tangent and include a lot of information that is not necessary. There could be a lot of information in this anecdote that's not necessary. You could tell us about one of your friends, and maybe he wasn't doing very well at school and was supposed to study that day, but instead he decided to come with you on this walk to the waterfall. But actually, none of that is important. Or you could tell us I don't know, a million details about the scenery and what it looked like, the countryside. But that's not important. A good anecdote should be clear, concrete, and concise. The audience is not here for the anecdote. The audience wants to hear your main speech. A good anecdote is just a very good way of showing what your main point will be. And that's why a lot of speeches and presentations will include a short anecdote, usually at the beginning as an attention getter, where the presenter will tell the audience about a short experience they've had that demonstrates very clearly what they're going to talk about. And it makes the topic a lot more personal. So let's take a look at some pretty common life lessons here. It's important to think for yourself. I mean, this is a general truth. It's important to not always go along with people, but also have your own opinion and know when it's essential for you to follow your own path and not follow what the crowd is doing. That's an important one. Number two, self-discipline is important if you want to succeed. Any presentation by a business person or someone that has become successful will probably have some story about how they had to control their desires, budget their time, give up something else that they wanted in order to make the conditions for them to succeed. Self-discipline is important. If you want to succeed in something, you've got to be focused. Number three, sometimes you have to take risks to get what you want. Number four, you should never make promises you can't keep. Interesting to hear an anecdote that shows that point. You should never lie to the people that you love. Hard work can be satisfying. The only thing that is certain is change. Friendship is one of the most valuable things in life. If you want a good relationship, you have to compromise. And the last one here, sometimes parents really do know best. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, now it's time to give you and your classmates a short activity where you can get some participation points. All right, so here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to choose a life lesson from the list. So go back there, you can see the life lessons here, 1 through 10. Choose one of these life lessons. So choose the life lesson before you choose the event. So think of a life lesson here that you'd like to write about. And then think of an experience that demonstrates that life lesson. Now, if you have an actual event from your own life that clearly demonstrates the truth of these life lessons or this particular life lesson, now tell me about something from your life. If you don't have any experience from your own life that clearly demonstrates one of these general truths, you can make something up. So it can be fictional as well. Anecdotes are supposed to be truthful, but in this case, if you don't have a life experience that demonstrates that truth, a fictional one will do. So think of an experience that demonstrates the life lesson, can be fictional or from your own life. From your own life is better, but I have no way of knowing if it's fictional. Number three, organize the important points into 2 parts. Before you write the anecdote, it's a good idea to organize your information. So write down all of the key points and then decide which ones do you think should go into the first paragraph and which parts do you think should go into the second paragraph. Another reason why it's a good idea to organize it first, so like to quickly write down in point form all of your ideas, is you might find yourself writing too much. It's very, very easy, especially if you're writing about a personal life experience, to include details that are not really that necessary. And by the way, that's called a tangent, a T-A-N-G-E-N-T. We'll probably be looking at that in a little bit of detail on Tuesday. So yeah, a tangent, going off on a tangent, is when you include information, like details and examples, that are not closely related to the life lesson itself. Maybe it's interesting to you, but you start going off on the tangent and then people forget what the main idea was. Anecdotes should be short, so stay focused. So organize the points into two parts. What information will be put in the first paragraph? What information will be put in the second? Remember, you might want to have a sentence at the end of the first paragraph that kind of hints at the life lesson, and then another sentence that clearly shows that you've learned the life lesson at the very end of the anecdote. So that would be a good idea. And then, yeah, write a short anecdote, short 2-paragraph anecdote, maximum 250 words, and then just post it on Cyber Campus assignments. Like I said, maximum 250 words, only 2 paragraphs. And please put the word count at the end. If you include more than 2 paragraphs or more than 250 words, that will show me that you did not follow the instructions. So if you have any questions about this activity, please post it on Kakao Work, and I will answer it as quickly as possible. But I think this is fairly self-evident what I'm asking you for. Choose a life lesson from the list. There we go. Choose a life lesson. Think of an experience from your own life or a fictional experience. Organize the information into 2 different parts. Think what information is necessary for context, background. What information will kind of like introduce, the scene. And then what would be the second part, where there's usually a shift of some kind, and then you get the main event very quickly, and then the conclusion of the life lesson. So make sure that it's maximum of 250 words, include a word count at the end, and then please post it on Cyber Campus assignments before our next class on Tuesday. So I'm giving you until next Tuesday before class time to complete this anecdote assignment and then participation assignment, and then upload it to Cyber Campus. Thank you very, very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of Chuseok, and I will see you next week. So thank you very much, and bye-bye.